Welcome back, everyone. Spring and summer is a time for new growth and taking bold action together. So we hope these stories can inspire you to live boldly, take wise chances, and with our friends and family, make a difference together. Today we will be reading A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, retold by Billy Aronson. So as we lean in with the spirit of adventure, grab a friend, like Jade here, and let's enjoy the story together. Chapter 15, The Real Sea Monster. Luckily, the winds picked up and blew us swiftly away from the scene of the battle. The next day was calm and quiet until we began to hear a faint roar in the distance. As the hours passed, the roar got slightly louder. My first thought was that it was a waterfall. My uncle probably would have loved plunging down a tremendous waterfall, since it would have moved us closer to our destination. I, however, felt differently about that prospect. When Hans climbed the mast to view the horizon, his eyes fixed on something. He came down, stood beside us, and pointed. My uncle took a telescope and peered ahead. Yes, he cried. There it is. What? I asked. A tremendous spurt of water rising out of the waves, he answered. Another sea monster? I cried in alarm. Maybe, my uncle replied. Let's steer around it, I insisted. I've seen enough sea monsters for one trip. Keep straight ahead, my uncle instructed Hans, who remained calm. Was there no way to change my uncle's mind? Really doesn't seem like it. But he keeps trying. This creature was at least 40 miles away, but we could already see water from its spout soaring into the sky. The beast must be unbelievably huge. Soon I caught a glimpse of the creature. Its long, black, mountainous body was lying on top of the water like an island. It was at least 4 miles long. As we approached, the beast stayed completely still, as though sleeping. The waves that broke across his back never moved him in the least. His water spout rose to 500 feet, making continuous roaring sound as it blasted forth from the animal's back. We moved closer and closer. I panicked. Something in me snapped. For a moment, I stopped caring about the journey or my uncle's wishes. I wouldn't get an inch closer to the sleeping giant. I took a knife and threatened to cut up the sail. I started calling my uncle a fool, a lunatic, and any other names that sprang to my lips in my crazed state. Suddenly, Hans pointed once again to the monster, saying, Home! An island, cried my uncle. An island, I echoed, as relieved as I was embarrassed. By the water spout, I asked. Geyser, said Hans. Yes, of course, a geyser, my uncle said, laughing. Geysers like this are common in Iceland. I've been wrong, thank goodness. Now that I wasn't scared, I could appreciate the majesty of the geyser. The tall plume of water glittered in the light. Sometimes it shot up with even more fury, causing its beautiful plume to tremble. As the droplets fell from its spray, they shimmered in all the colors of the rainbow. Hans checked to make sure the raft was in good shape, while my uncle and I explored the island. Its surface was a mixture of granite and sandstone that was extremely hot. When I put a thermometer on the geyser, I noted that the water was 163 degrees. Would we come upon higher and higher temperatures as we continued on our journey? Only time would tell. My uncle figured that we had traveled over 800 miles since leaving Port Gretchen. That put us some 1,800 miles from Iceland, exactly under England. Of course, before leaving the island, my uncle had to name it. I was very pleased with this choice, Axel Island. A few hours later, when we had left Axel Island, behind us, the weather changed suddenly. The clouds of gas sank down near the sea. They became darker and thicker, hanging before us like a curtain. Soon masses of dark clouds lined the horizon. Though the sea was calm, I had a feeling it would change at any moment. The air was filled with electricity. I could feel my hairs standing on end, as though I'd been attached to a battery. If one of the others touched me, I think I would have given a bad shock. Then the wind slowed down, like a giant catching its breath. I believe we're going to have bad weather, I told my uncle. He just shrugged his shoulders. We're in for an awful storm, I continued. These clouds are getting thicker and lower, as if it's about to crush us. Everything became silent. The wind died, as though nature had quit breathing. The sail hung straight down. The raft stopped moving upon the sea, which had become as still as glass. Let's lower the sail, I pleaded. No, my uncle cried impatiently. Let the storm sweep us where it will, just so it blows us to a coast. Axel wants the sail taken down so that when the storm hits, they won't get blown all around. Very reasonable request. But the professor doesn't seem the least bit afraid of what the storm might do to the ship. He'll face any storm, any monster, anything to reach his goal. The storm hit. It came from every corner of the huge cavern. It raged from every direction. It roared, it screamed, it shrieked with glee as though demons had been loosed upon us. The raft rose high on huge waves and slammed back down into the water over and over again. My uncle was thrown to the deck. I dragged myself towards him to hold on to the rope he was clutching. When I saw his face, I was amazed to find him gazing at the wild spectacle with delight. Hans never moved a muscle. His long hair blew all around his determined face as he held the rudder steady with all his might. The sail spread out and filled like a soap bubble around, about to burst. "Let it down!" I cried. "Let it down!" "Let it alone!" shouted my uncle. As he wished, we rushed across the waves at incredible speed. Ahead, the wall of clouds ripped apart as the sea foamed like the mouth of a rabid dog. Thunder exploded in deafening claps, and I was nearly blinded by dazzling flashes of lightning. Lightning bolts crossed one another, hurled from every side in their paths. Waves rose up towards us like fire-breathing monsters. Good thing Pup isn't with me. He hates thunder and lightning. As the entire sea raged with crests of flame, hail began falling. 1,000,000 pellets came smashing down, clattering as they smacked our boots and clanged against our weapons. I clung with all my might to the mast, which the roaring wind was bending like a reed. Through the night, the storm showed no signs of letting up. Thunder blasted constantly. Lightning continued to dart in all directions. I saw it strike at the cavern roof, bursting into balls of fire. I wondered if the entire cavern might come crashing in. The noise of the storm was so loud that we couldn't hear each other speak a single word. If all the gunpowder in the world were exploding at once, I could not have heard it over the storm. We were battered about, nearly exhausted. Hans remained as usual. The storm got worse as the days went by. We had to tie down all our supplies. Then we had to tie ourselves down to avoid being washed away. At times, the raft plunged so low that we were actually underwater. When we tried to speak, it was of no use. Even when we shouted right into each other's ears, the roar of the storm drowned out our words. Towards the end of the storm's second day, a ball of fire leapt onto the edge of our raft. At once the mast and sail were ripped from the boat and went soaring into the sky like a kite. We were frozen, actually shivered with terror. The ball of fire, half white, half blue, about the size of a 10-inch bomb, rolled all over our craft. When it landed on the barrel that held our gunpowder, I shuddered. But it rolled off towards Hans, who seemed to scare it away from him with a stare. When it rolled towards my uncle, he fell to his knees to avoid it. Then the thing came towards me. I stood there, pale and trembling in the dazzling heat and light. The fireball spun around my feet as I tried to skip around it. The awful smell of its burning gas filled my throat and lungs. I felt as if I were about to choke. Then all of a sudden, I found that I couldn't move my feet. I was glued to the spot. That ball of electricity had turned all the iron on board to magnets. The tools and weapons were clanging together, and the nails in my boots clung to the plate of iron that was wedged in the floor of the raft. I couldn't move. The fireball started rolling towards me again. I sank to the ground and struggled with all my might to rip the iron plate from the floor. I fell to the side just as the blazing thing bounced past me and exploded into a blinding sheet of fire. Then everything became dark. For a day, I could hardly see a thing. The storm continued, but there was almost no lightning. Still, we sailed ahead at tremendous speed. As the hours went by, I figured we had passed under England and under the English Channel, then under France, and probably under all of Europe. A frightening noise startled us. It sounded like the sea breaking against rocks. We found ourselves in a raft flying through the air. What did they hit? Another monster? And more important, where do they land? That does it for Chapter 15. Join us again for Chapter 16.